Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us today for the webinar. I hope everyone is able to see my screen. I just have the UN SDG Hub page on my desktop. I should be getting a green light that everyone should see my screen there. But I want to just thank everyone for joining us for today's webinar. My name is Charles Brigham, and I'm an account manager for the Nonprofits and Global Organizations team here at Esri. If some of you don't know Esri, Esri is the leading provider of geospatial mapping software around the globe. We support our users in doing great things with geographic information, and we're really excited today to have some of these presenters. These are pioneers in the space of sustainable development. They're on the front lines of the SDGs and different development indicators to achieve the 2030 agenda, and I'm just really excited to have them here today. I won't introduce them just yet. Right now, I have a little housekeeping before we get started. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the questions box in your GoToWebinar control panel. The team will be monitoring these questions during the presentation and answering them at the end of the webinar. After we end the webinar, take a few minutes to answer a series of multiple choice questions. We'll be using this feedback for review of this webinar and to provide you a even better experience in the future. If we have any challenges around those surveys, we'll send one post-event. So today we have two external presenters that, again, are pioneering the sustainable development space with their work. The first presenter will be Mr. Peng Xu, Senior Engineer at the National Geomatics Center of China. The next presenter will be Pauline Masita, Spatial Data Analyst, Data and Analytics Unit for UN Habitat. And last but not least, we'll have our own Esri Solution Engineer Adam Pfister on the nonprofit and global organizations, working tightly with me, taking up the end and leaving us in a strong position for discussion. I am just quickly showing you some new things that are being developed and released. The first thing I'll show on my screen quickly, if you haven't seen it, and I'm not going to go into depth in any of these, but I want to introduce them, is the Pacific Ocean Data Portal put out by ESCOP, which aims to assemble Pacific Ocean data in a hub and disseminate that around the different SDG indicators, as well as the different oceans challenges for the Pacific. They're doing a lot of work, and I would urge you to check this out. We'll provide these links towards the end of the presentation, but I'm just scrolling to show you guys and to give you an idea of what they've done. Next is the SDG Hub site for the state of Qatar. This is some great work put out by the government, and they are showcasing their progress in monitoring and reporting on the SDGs. The different tiles are selectable, and you can dig into the different goals, targets, and indicators. There's media and specific indicator dissemination work that they've portrayed in the links here and stories around that. So that should kick us off to a good start with even more and significant detail around very substantial work by Mr. Peng Xu, who is now going to present on the Decheng country profile work. Without further ado, Peng Xu, please take the stage. Let me know if you have any troubles.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Peng Xu. I'm from National Geomatics Center of China, which is an institution of Ministry of Natural Resources of People's Republic of China. So today I will share some works we've processing in the last 2 years. It's about a Chinese pilot project on SDG local monitoring. It's a work we call it from local SDG profile to decision making. Firstly, all this work is coming from the UN promoted this 2030 SDG targets, and it's becoming a crucial task for national and local governments to do this using based on this indicator-based monitoring. And when we do this local monitoring, there's a few challenges. Firstly, it's about to choose the appropriate indicators for the sub-national level monitoring. And also, we are facing the challenge how to integrate geospatial and statistical data together. And we also have the challenge to perform how overall process of assessment, and then how to transfer this monitoring into knowledge and then help the decision making. And here is where the pilot work happens. It's Deqing County in Zhejiang province in the east part of China. It has 430,000 permanent habitats, and its GDP in 2017 is $6.91 billion, which is a very rich county in China. And here they have a very good sustainable development situations, and it also have characteristics that it has industries about information. So it has rich and very numerous geospatial informations. So here we finished this pilot work in 2 years. Firstly, we just finished the regional SDGs assessment and monitoring, which was finished in 2018. And last year we finished this, we just finished this SDG knowledge services. For all this work, we developed some methodology and have some progress. One is a report, and another one is, knowledge web portal. Then I will introduce how we do this local monitoring and how to transfer this local monitor result to this knowledge service. First, we promoted a data-driven and evidence-based approach to do this local monitoring. There are four parts of this whole approach. One is to localization of indicators. Then we do this spatial and temporal data processing. Then we computing each indicators with geographic angle, and we use the indicator and evidence-based analysis to finish the report. And here is how we do this localization of indicators. There are 102 indicators were selected for the Deqing County, which is based on the global indicator frameworks. We use some criteria for localization, and we have all these 102 indicators with definition, calculation method, and data requirements. And in the 102 indicators, 47 are adopted, 6 are extended, 42 are revised, and 7 are substituted. Then we do the data processing. We collected over 400 geospatial data, all kinds of data, and do this data processing. One I have to mention is we do this population disaggregation. We use the land cover data and the statistical population data to form this 30-meter resolution population density map. And after that, we started this data-driven indicator measurement. For these 102 indicators, there are 3 ways to measure them. One is to direct calculation with statistical data. There are 85 of them. And 10 using the direct derivation from geospatial data, like the spatial density calculation, the coverage classification, and others. And there are 7 using the integrated statistical and geospatial informations. And here is list these 17 indicators with related to geospatial data. And we have just a quick view about this. 1.4.1 population proportion living households with access to basic services. And this is 11.3.1 ratio of land consumption rate to population growth rate. And then we promoted this hierarchical assessment, the three-level assessment. One is indicator levels, and the second one is the single SDG levels. Here is the examples. We use this chart to do this two levels assessment. And one for each indicators, we have its quantitative result, which listed in the middle of the table. And for the single SDG levels, we do this. We have the use evaluation reference to judge it using 4 or 5 colors into 5 levels. And for this, the third level is SDG cluster levels. We cluster all these indicators into economy, society, and environment clusters. But we did this in the target level. We just cluster all these targets into 3 clusters. And also we calculate this coefficient of variation of each clusters. And the lower coefficient of variance means better coordination. And then we finish this report. We have 2 versions. The Chinese version is around 70 pages, and the English version is around 80 pages. And the result and the approach was all in these reports. Then for the third part is how we use this report to support the decision making. Firstly is we developed SDG knowledge modeling and services. Based on the character of SDGs, the constructive models has been built, and then we extracted knowledge from the report with the process of knowledge connection and to form the knowledge graph. And then all the knowledge nodes are visualized. Here is how we do this constructive modeling. Based on this GIF three-level constructor, we expanded into this 5-level thing, which is domain, goals, connotation, knowledge point, and the data facts. And for each level, we define the entity relationship for them to describe them. And then we extract knowledge from the report. And based on these domains goals, we integrate the assessment result with the facts and proofs to form this knowledge point. And for this knowledge point, it can be divided into 3 categories. One is description knowledge, one is diagnosis knowledge, and one is the forecast knowledge. And we just formed about 130 knowledge points, which covers all domains and goals. And here is an example of the knowledge point. For this diagnosis point, is it expressed in the spatial temporal effects, and also the description is the indicator result. And also the diagnosis part is about the variation, and also the description is about the practice of how they do it. Then we do this knowledge connections based on this 5-level structure. We connect all this knowledge point into this knowledge graph. It's a 5-level knowledge network with 3 file nodes, 16 target nodes, 44 connotation nodes, 68 knowledge points, and over 700 data facts. Then we do these knowledge visualizations, and for this, some special informations, we're using the special connection ways to process the knowledge with a special info. We use the geocoding, thematic transformation, and spatial situation simulation to form these thematic maps and dynamic maps. And all the knowledge is transferred into or dynamic graph or logically connected to some elements like the pictures, videos, and hyperlinks. And we also developed this service system. And for this service systems, there are three parts. One is the data management system. One is the customization of knowledge service tools. And also we have the knowledge service hub. Here is the knowledge service customization tools. We using the component models to customize knowledge service pages. And for the left window, the knowledge content editing window, it provides rich styles and multiple interactive response modes. And for the right window, which is a canvas, it's an editor part for the data facts element window. And it provides multiple visualization tools to adding maps, dynamic maps, graphs, and dynamic graphs. And based on these tools, we customize this knowledge service hub. This is the construction of these service hubs. We have the knowledge service, indicator service, story search, and some other functions. And here is the interface of this service hub. It has 7 main functions, and the main part is using SDG, turntable, and domain buttons to find more details about this knowledge point. And then the local policymakers using these systems to formulate a transformation program and 3-year action plans with this result. And it basically, through the comparison and analysis of the current situation that is provided in this system, and then develop missions are set up and the action plan is formulated. Here is one example about how we formulate these action plans. Firstly, based on this knowledge service, which is involved thinking about rural soil treatment, it tells us that the rural soil treatment coverage is 100%, but the proportion of the rural soil treatment is still have need to improve. So they get the detailed action plans to accelerate the construction of the pipe networking, and all these locations which have lower processing ratios expressed in the map. So for these 3 years local, for these 3 years action plans, there are 44 missions are promoted, and there are about 86 detailed action plans that's to make these missions come true. So from this pilot work, we think that it relies a practice to it relies a comprehensive measurement of the monitoring of the progress towards SDG at the national level. And we think that the geospatial information was utilized and plays a role in these works are that the geospatial data can geospatial disaggregation of statistical data and the derivation of indicators with geospatial parameters. And also we use the location-based visualization knowledge presentation as the spatial temporal evidences. And from these 2 years work, a mechanism of monitoring, knowledge, division, and action has been built up and help to support the local SDG implement. So here I think this is the whole mechanism of how we run this. And also at the bottom, this mechanism, there are infrastructure, data, tools, and standards to support them, and which is also our next work to make them like to become a focus on the standards and for the common tools, and also we need more partnership for doing this. Okay, thank you. Here is all my sharing, and I think I can have a quick view about our website. You may be interested. Here is the the homepage of this one. We have the term table, and if you are interested in any one, you can just click and go into the detailed part. And on the right is a knowledge graph about all these knowledge points, and also we have a constructive trees listed on the left side, and we have a quick view about some details about maybe the safe drinking. This is a demonstration about the drinking water source of Deqing, that the water resources which reflect the protection of the place where the water resources is. And also we are about some sanitation facilities like the public toilets and how it can serve the population. And only takes 60 minutes at most to reach the nearest public facilities in this, the central town. So, okay, I think I just finished my presentations. So I will give the floor to Chalice.
Thanks, Peng Shu. That was excellent. Great work. I'm really eager to hear how some of our attendees are going to address some of the questions here. A lot of work has been done, and I certainly have questions and always have in this work. So next we're going to turn over to Pauline, who's going to talk about the UN Habitat effort and SDG Hub work, and also showcase some really revolutionary work that they're doing, again, on the edges and fringe of sustainable development.
So once you have data, what next? That was the question we sought to answer using ArcGIS Online. And there are three things that I hope to achieve today. First is to show you some of the capabilities of ArcGIS Hub using the urban indicator database that we are currently trying to configure. It is still a work in progress. We have not published it. I would also want to share our experiences for those who would want to know what it is like to configure the site, especially for non-technical people who have not done web design, because the framework, the general framework of the hub is in the form of a website, and also to give you an overview of where we are going in terms of using this site. Before I get into that subject, I would like to give you also an overview of who we are as an organization. Data is the core pillar of UN Habitat activities. The Urban Indicator program was initiated in 1992 to develop the urban indicators and produce data. Over time, a lot of updates have been done with significant shifts to integrating geospatial data into our work. So our unit, which is the UN Habitat Data and Analytics Unit, is the data engine of the organization. We are responsible for collecting data, analyzing, monitoring, and reporting on sustainable urbanization. Because of this, it has always been important for us to explore the different ways that we could potentially manage our data. What we were looking for was a system that is secure to store our data that we have been collecting and generating over the years. We needed a system that was aligned with our existing geospatial data production processes, that would enable us to crowdsource for more data, get feedback about our data, and above all, monitor the trends within our data. And all this we wanted to do without needing a third party to step in and handle our data. We needed something that was easy to use across multiple devices, and we could simplify the complexity of managing all this data. It was around this time that we realized that the solution was right in our hands. We had acquired an ArcGIS Online license, and the platform met the criteria that we had in mind. So the first step we took was creating the system architecture in order to understand the different components, their relationships, and how all this information would be accessed. The architecture showed us that with our spatial and non-spatial data, which we intended to use within the platform, we could create maps, dashboards, story maps, and various applications that we could share to the hub site along with the related documentation. And the beauty of it was that the platform would be accessible by web, desktop, and on devices. We then went into data preparation. Once we had an idea of what we wanted from the site and what we could get out of it, the most important thing for us was to look at our data. And whether it is analysis or design, preparation is key to success. So before we got into the design, we looked at three key things. First was the data structure. We realized that there were so many functions that the Hub and ArcGIS Online offered and that we wanted to use, but with the method we were storing our data and the format we were storing it in, we needed to make some modifications in order for us to use them, particularly in the dashboards, and because for us the dashboards were supposed to be means for people to filter and compare data. So, for example, on the screen, we had to convert all the feeds we needed to use for our filters as rows instead of columns, and that was very time consuming. We had to duplicate a lot of our entries, and the process was tedious. In addition, we needed to add new columns and factor in the regions and sub-regions so that for our potential users, they will be able to actually look at all this information based on that criteria. We also needed to look at the data units and the broad themes within all the information that we had acquired, because for the site to run, you needed to have tags for every data set that you uploaded. ArcGIS Hub is highly intuitive and it picks on the preset information that you have uploaded with your document. So we realized that if you do not have a set of standard tags, then you'd have a lot of duplication and it would be a problem in the site eventually. So we had to look at the information and determine what we were going to have as our tags and use those as our standard. And the last thing we had to do with our data was geocode the data sets that we could, and for those that were too large and would consume a lot of credits, we opted to use unique IDs across all our data sets so that we could link our spatial and non-spatial data, which is in the tables and the shape files. So in terms of site design, we realized that having just a beautifully designed site with poor quality data was no better than having a poorly designed site with good data. So we did not, because we did not want to compromise on either, we opted to look for the simplest way to show our data to our potential users. The hub site allowed us to had a drag and drop functionality, which made it very easy for anyone, including us who had never interacted with the site before, to get our first draft of the site up. Then we later went on and customized it because it gives you the option to create your own custom cards. Although it does not allow for JavaScript, we still used CSS and Bootstrap, and we got our site layout pretty easily. It was not very complex. We went through several designs in the course of several months, and the goal for us was to have an interface that would give you what you need at first glance. We opted for a two-tier navigation bar with the items we felt the users would find most useful when they landed on our site. And what we wanted for our homepage was basically an overview of the contents that you would find on the site. So it would give you the ability to search, whether by keywords or to go into the thematic searches, which are pre-configured. So if you wanted to look at London environment, services, quality of life, you could do that. We also had dashboards and applications that we had also made on the site that supported the site and also give various insights into the kind of data we have and the related documents. So there are various publications that the organization has relating to SDG data and the metadata and modules. We also linked them on the site. Some of the key components that the site enables users to enjoy, for example, the search functions, which I explained earlier. As you can see on the screen, all you have to do is key in your words. It will bring all the related data sets. We also added the capability to search for look into your country, whichever country you are in, and see what kind of data we have. And for the SDGs, as you can see, Oman, we had SDG target indicator 1.41, which was not available, but the others are available, and this data you'll be able to access on the site. The site also gave you the capability to share and collaborate. It gave us the idea we had as we thought of the site was the ability to share information we have and to collaborate with others. And in terms of sharing, of course, the site would give you the ability to download different data, the data sets we've uploaded in different formats. So that if it's a shape file, you would have spreadsheets, file geodatabases, and many others. You can also download our documentation. We did not want to compromise on data quality, so it was critical for us to be able to get feedback from our users regarding the resources available. So we used the GeoForms, which is an application available also. We configured in ArcGIS Online, which we configured as a means by which any inaccuracies and insufficiency in our data would be reported to us with the location of the data set. Monitoring this feedback would give us insights on, for example, which areas need more focus. Users would be able to share their own data sets with us to help us fill any gaps or tell us what urban data they would want to have. The analysis of this, the inputs we would get from our users would help us quality check and populate the database, because we intend to have data from all over the world, and with the team we have, it would be really helpful if people would contribute to our efforts. And this information would also help us strategize on the way forward in terms of what kind of data we would also want to add to this site, what kind of applications or what areas are people most interested in. The site will also contain various dashboards for data comparison for users interested in understanding trends, for example, in large consumption or basic service accessibility. We have and are still in the process of creating dashboards for that purpose. The beauty of the hub was that it did not limit us to using just the existing dashboards that are within the ArcGIS Online platform, but it allowed for embedding external content. We intend to explore various other dashboard platforms for large data visualization and comparison, and eventually embed them directly into the site. In summary, what we learned was that having a clear concept about what you have and what you want, as well as proper data preparation, at the very least, will make your work easier in the long run. And the results will definitely leave you less tired and more satisfied. Having a comprehensive site design that accommodates the datasets, apps, and documentations without cluttering or necessitating unnecessary navigation will make your site more user-friendly. Simplicity is the way to go, whether it's the site design, application, configuration, or captions. Prioritizing getting to the point as fast as possible will improve user experience. And while you're at it, it would be in your best interest to also learn how to use Bootstrap and CSS to create your own custom cards if you haven't done so already. The final thing would be to have fun with it, because at the end of the day, the ArcGIS platform has very many capabilities and very many functions, and it has a lot to offer. Enjoying the process and making work your play will give you endless possibilities in terms of data visualization, sharing your data, and many other things. In conclusion, the site is still a work in progress. We intend to integrate it with other external sources and incorporate audiovisual tutorials in addition to the documentation as part of our tool dissemination and advocacy for accelerated monitoring and supporting of sustainable urbanization. We intend to also incorporate analytical products and quick reports. We will also keep exploring the other tools and services available on the platform, just as we have the hub. I will give you an overview of what the site looks like. So this is our urban indicators database. As I described earlier, we had the simple search functions, the thematic areas, so you can search based on different themes and explore our dashboards, as well as the publications that we have on the site. You could also get in touch with the form on the site. There's instructions on how to use the site and what you can get out of the site. And I think that brings me to the end of my presentation. I will hand over to Charles.
Pauline, thank you so much. That was excellent. Great work. And, you know, both you and Peng have just, I think, prompted a lot of great questions. So we're really excited to see all the engagements in the questions panel. So I see some really good ones and interesting ones that we'll address. Moving on, we want to get it all in here. Adam is going to talk to building products with SDG data and alternative sources with SDG data, as well as share some resources. So Adam, take it away.
Great, thanks, Charles. I'd like to start by looking at some of the ways we can integrate some of the data sources, standards and formats that we see out there. A lot of it has been asked of us if we could have something that would make supporting that easier. So as shown in Pauline's presentation and Peng Shu's presentation, there's some great points and talks about data formats and standards. So ArcGIS provides that open standards-based approach, so you can integrate many data sets in many different formats. Global standards like GeoJSON, from those to also maybe not so widely used across the world, but maybe widely used in the statistical community. And we see that SDMX, the Statistical Data and Metadata Exchange format and standard, is something that is used pretty pervasively across that community. So in working directly with those providers, the people that set the standards, we're working on tools to allow you to bring in SDMX formats into ArcGIS. And another example of a different data source is one that's called PXWeb. So PXWeb is a way that helps you manage your statistical data. It uses an interface much like this to query the information, but also like SDMX, it provides this as an API as well. So what we've decided to do is we take that information, and here we're seeing an example of responses from an SDMX API or a CSV file or in PXWeb. There's that interface and how you would receive the information from a table or the response from a PXWeb API. We can convert those into statistical tools, geoprocessing tools that you can use directly within the ArcGIS platform. So you can bring in information, you can say, here's the API I want to query. When it comes back, turn it into feature classes that I can then use within the ArcGIS platform. So if you're looking at migration information in Finland, rather than viewing it in a CSV file, you can directly turn that into feature classes that are then ready to publish directly to your SDG data hub. And the same thing can be done on a folder of CSV files as your input as well. So these tools will become available shortly, and they'll be located on GitHub, and we'll encourage the community to comment and even help development on it if that's something that they'd like to do. So now I'd like to talk about some applications that are really making use and do a great job of showing the practical application of SDG data. So how do we use this information as we go through the data transformation process? The first one we'll look at is called the UN SDG Country Profiles application. So this looks at national level SDG indicators and provides fact information that can be used to discern progress on any of the indicators. It provides a clear and concise representation of the data in a human readable format. So let's show how that looks like. I'll select a country, and the app will adjust and it will show me the indicators. Up at the top, I have some basic information like demographics, population, about the country itself. And then as I scroll through, I can see the indicators, but I see that fact. It's in a statement that's giving me an immediate view of that particular indicator. So how has poverty changed since 1997? How has the population suffering from hunger changed since 2000? So these quick charts, graphs, things like KPI indicators or gauge charts to show information over time here to represent air pollution are very effective in communicating the SDGs to people who don't necessarily ingest data or understand data at the tabular format. They want to see it visually a little bit. They want to get an idea of why it's important for us to care about this particular indicator. Associated with each fact is the ability to download the data as a CSV file, to view the data set on a hub site, similar to what you saw with Pauline's site. SDG.org is where all this data is coming from. You can view that information here. And you can also view a dashboard of this particular indicator. So the dashboard shows us a more detailed view of the indicator at the global level. And these dashboards are configured using Operations Dashboard for ArcGIS. They all use the same data source, and it removes a need for duplicating the same data for different purposes or different apps. So this means when the data is updated and the UN releases a new set of data at the quarterly timeframe, the country profiles app we just saw, the dashboard here, any other story map or application that's making use of the data will immediately see those changes. This will reduce the amount of time you have to spend in updating your applications whenever you make a data change. Now I'd like to talk about the Living Atlas. So the ArcGIS Living Atlas of the World is a curated gallery of data, services, maps, and applications from around the world. In addition to things like demographic data, base maps, boundaries, imagery, it also provides information for real-time data, things like weather, watches and warnings, current weather data, severe weather data. You can also look for more detailed information like population estimates. And these imagery layers, these web maps can be brought in to your application. You can use them, you can configure and customize them and really bring them into your domain and use them to support the work that you're doing with the SDGs. And it's much more than just data and services, it's also applications. So the Living Atlas provides apps that are focused to maybe interrogate things like hurricanes, look at sea ice change over time, look at this application that shows different imagery sources. It's called the Wayback Imagery app. And as I select a set of imagery, I can see how that area of the world has changed over time by just mousing over the timeline and seeing the change in that little frame there. You can see the area that's been built up and look at changes and bring this into, again, how you work with your SDGs. And finally, I'd like to talk about some of the learning resources we have available to us. So I think we all agree that our time to talk about these things and only talk about them is reaching an endpoint, right? So we need to take the next steps to effectively do this work. And our two speakers have done an incredible job at showing you some examples of what can be accomplished. So in that spirit, we've decided to, with some dedicated partners, put together a variety of learning resources. And the first one I'll talk about is this Learn ArcGIS site. So available at learn.arcgis.com. Learn ArcGIS is a resource consisting of guided lessons that are based on real-world problems. And the SDGs are the biggest problems we have out there. So these lessons will help you break down the technology and learn it in a simple step-by-step manner. And there are hundreds of lessons. You can choose filters on the left-hand side to narrow in your area of focus. If it's a particular set of software, if you're looking for capabilities, if you're looking for a lesson in a particular area of the world, you can use the filter to adjust the lessons themselves. So we actually have this SDG path that we've created. And the path is different from an individual lesson only in that it groups lessons together to form a common focus. So here, I'd suggest you to investigate this, watch this space, bookmark it, tell a friend, because we will be adding more and more to these, more and more lessons to help you with this information on how you could use GIS to examine global poverty, to actually calculate indicators like estimating access to infrastructure. This will be a great resource for you going forward. And we've also partnered with the UN on their UN SDG Learn site. And this site briefly has courses and something called microlearning as well. And microlearning you can search through and filter in the same way you could from the Learn Lessons site. You can actually search for Esri and you'll see some of those same lessons that we have are just simply linked into here. So there's multiple entry points to these lessons. We want to encourage involvement here and make sure everybody can discover what's out there to help them. And finally, I'd like to talk about a resource we're putting together. That is a SDG implementation guide. So this guide will outline some of the major steps taken by some of our presenters today, and its purpose will be to support your efforts in releasing your own SDG hub. So it'll cover sections on building requirements, setting up some of the components of the software, doing some data work, discovery, collection, and processing, and ultimately sharing your work, creating that hub, publicizing it, and talking about it. So it's currently planned for release in March. Please stay connected with us via social media channels for the latest update. And I'd like to thank you very much for your time, and I'll turn it back over to Charles to wrap us up.
Thank you, Adam. Thank you very much. Thank all the presenters. I'm really excited to have you all here and happy that we've made it through an amazing webinar. We will go ahead and take some time for questions now. We have about 10 minutes, and just as a reminder, please be sure to type your questions into the question box in the control panel. It looks like we have a lot. I'm not sure we're going to get to all of these. I also want to remind everyone to fill out the survey so we can have more webinars like these around sustainable development that I and my team and the presenters find extremely valuable. We're going to bring more of this your way. Some of the simple questions, maybe before I turn it over to Adam to answer some of the technical questions, and Peng Chu and Pauline. Some simple questions that maybe I can address here are the SDGs are the Sustainable Development Goals. There's 17 goals, 69 targets, and 232 indicators. A lot of these indicators are geospatial in nature or have a geospatial component within the methodology. And Esri has been supporting SDGs since their inception and adoption by every country in the world. Every country is required to report on these through different mechanisms at the local, national, and regional and global level. And our technology is part of the puzzle in terms of helping solve the data gap, if you may. There's other structures that are much wider and more expansive that are addressing the SDGs, the 2030 Agenda, and sustainable development Some of those include GGIM, the Global Geospatial Information Management Group, who manages the SDG.org site along with the Statistics Division. There's also some documentation and work that they've been doing around what's called the IGIF, the Integrated Geospatial Information Framework, which I'd urge you all to look into as that's being developed now and put out now. So those are some of the resources and information for you to follow up on regarding the SDGs themselves. I do want to be very explicit here on the hub capabilities that you've seen. Some of them are custom and built around Esri services and other analytic tools used by our technology. The hub sites themselves, that's an actual technology. So we are using the word in terms of the technology, not as a general, build a hub. So I want to be explicit there to say that the hub can encapsulate visualizations and different analytic outputs from different systems. And it's really an open, interoperable, service-based environment to absorb a lot of different sustainable development data. Adam, do you want to address some of the more technical questions, or maybe fill in some of the gaps that I may have left out some of these questions, and then we can turn it over to Pangshu and Pauline?
Sure. Yeah, one of the questions is regarding spreadsheets are being the old way, and how we manage data. And really, we not necessarily saying that spreadsheets are the old way, but we're kind of enabling you to work where you're at, or meeting you where you're at the moment. So if spreadsheets is how you do your work, we want to make sure that we make that process as easy as possible if standing up an SDG data hub is where you want to be. One of the other questions about a little bit more about the tools that can be used to import SDMX data. So that's something that I can share at a later date with everybody here. We can send out an email. It will be hosted on GitHub with step-by-step instructions on how to ingest SDMX or PXWeb into ArcGIS, and then essentially turn that into feature classes and have that available for you to expose in your SDG data hub. And I think we have at least one for Peng, something regarding the way that the knowledge graph was created. So I think the question was, which tools were used to create the knowledge graph?
Actually, we don't use any tools. We created it as we create this website. We use this customization tools to define it, and then we just added everything in, and then the graph is formed. And the methodology we're using is the same like we use the connections with tags, with the keywords, with the hierarchical construction. And that is now what we do. Yeah.
Thanks,
Great,
Peng.
thank you.
Go ahead, Adam. There was a question on GitHub address from Esri, if you have that handy.
Yep, it's not currently made public at the moment, but once it's ready to go, we will definitely share it out.
Thanks. Maybe just so we can close it off with some future thoughts here. Some of the questions, I apologize that we may not have directly addressed. Throw them in there with the exclamation point if you really want us to try. I want to give our speakers at least a minute or two to talk about the challenges and future plans. Maybe Peng, if you don't mind sharing some of the challenges and future plans, just real quickly with the group, and then Pauline, maybe after that.
Okay, I'll just share some few points. Firstly, that's we just promoted the mechanism, but there's still a lot of the challenges and technical problem we have to face, like how to manage this data for creating the knowledge services. I just saw that Adam just demoed this a Living Atlas and LearnArcGIS. There are a lot of resources, but I think there another thing we should consider is that the outside sources that how can we integrate them for create this these knowledge services. And another thing is that this year's we will try to make 13 pilot to share their work, because now this website is still have to log in. And we also have some coordination with cooperation with the Escape. We want to promote some pilot works at the Southeast Asia countries, and we will share some our mechanisms and some our technologies. And we also want to have the cooperate on this, the manual and some of the specifications for doing this. So that's it.
Thank you, Peng. That's great to hear. I know that you're working towards that, and we want to also figure out ways to expand some of the exposure of your work and Pauline's and the other different applications around the SDGs. I think maybe Pauline, do you want to address that at a UN Habitat level in terms of how you see some of the future plans and challenges ahead?
Well, one of the biggest challenges for us was getting all the data we have into the site. That was very time consuming because it was a lot of repeated. You have to upload the data set one at a time, input the metadata, the right tag, and any other relevant information. That is definitely something that more of a heads up, because it's a process that you must undergo, especially when you're moving from one system to another. The other challenge was using the operational dashboard. We realized with very large data sets, you couldn't really compare the data. So that is why we opted to look for alternatives that we could use to enhance our visualizations on the site. In terms of the future of our hub site, I had mentioned that we would like to integrate it with external sources, incorporate audiovisual tutorials in addition to the documentation, because we have the metadata modules for all our SDG data, and also incorporate analytical products and quick reports. We'd like to have, for example, the country profiles with the data that we have on the site. And yes, that's about it for now. Of course, we'll also explore all the other functions that the ArcGIS platform has done and that the Responsive platform has to offer. Thank you.
Thank you, Pauline. We're at the last minute. We're going to try to address some of these questions offline. We're going to have to close out now. And please follow up with us with any further questions. Thank you all for attending the webinar, and we'll make this recording available and with other resources. Thank you all. Signing off.